Took him out with a heat seeker. There's something else, Major.
But there's something else. 6 men wearing U.S.-issued army boots. They came in from the north, and then they followed the guerrillas.
Mean anything to you?
Probably just another rebel patrol. They operate in here all the time.
Heatseeker, pretty sophisticated for a bunch of half-ass mountain boys. Welcome to Predator Minute, the podcast that breaks down the 1987 action sci-fi classic Predator 1 minute at a time. My name's John.
And I'm Jeff Glover.
Today we're talking about minute 14 of Predator. Minute 14 opens with Dylan and Poncho in the Snuggle Shack, and it ends with Dylan speculating who the extra footprints could belong to. So we're having some dialogue after a couple minutes of dialogue-free action, music, scenery, finally. Jeff, what do you want to start talking about this minute? I have quite the list that you could choose from if you really wanted, or you could go from your own notes.
Which I have so many of those. Let me look at them right now. So I actually, with this minute, I think I need your help deciphering kind of some details here. Because when I watched this movie, especially when I was younger, the beginning part of the movie always just sort of like flew by in the periphery for me, and it was always about, you know, when we get to the showdown with Arnold and the Predator. So there's some details happening here. So in the previous minute we found the down chopper with the bodies inside, the guts were ripped out, that whole thing.
The Snuggle Shack. The
Snuggle Shack, yeah. Carl Weathers poked his head in. All lovingly. Yep. So then we get some dialogue between who is it, Poncho and Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, are we to believe that the chopper was shot down by guerrillas, or was
I
this
totally
done?
Believe that.
Okay. And are we to believe that the Predator came by afterwards, or did the Predator have nothing to do with the carnage that they found in the chopper?
I believe we have not seen the beginning of the Predator's handiwork yet. I believe that the prognosis that Dutch gives, that a heat seeker took out the Huey, is correct. I think that is what we're to believe and understand about the situation. In the previous minute, I even cut around what you had said, because you in the previous minute gave credit to the Predator for shooting down the chopper. And I didn't refute you at all in the minute, listening back, and I thought, oh man, I can't believe that. So I'm gonna cut around that. So so tactfully said, like, you know, we tactfully cut around it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because they even put that in my notes about who shot down the chopper. And I am of the understanding that.
Yeah. So see, this is actually, I've seen this movie like, 500 times, and like watching it this closely, that's a little bit of a revelation. In my mind, just all the violence is always done by the Predator.
Yeah.
So this is more of them just kind of having their first run-in with the guerrillas, and then this kind of sets them on the trail, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like you're saying, there's a lot to be missed here in the beginning, just like the very beginning where they're showing the spaceship drop off, the little spaceship. I think a lot of people forget that part of the movie, and they, go to the movie. They're waiting for the Predator eventually to show up. I'm of the opinion it would be way cool to kind of go back in time and not see that first intro of the spaceship dropping off the little spaceship, and then because the whole first half hour of the movie or so, that whole first act, you have no idea, there's this Predator following them. You see a little bit of the heat vision before they hit the guerrilla camp, but you don't see the Predator at all. You don't see the invisible moving around, the active camouflage. I think it'd be super cool to go in without seeing that spaceship scene in the very beginning, and be totally caught off guard, surprised when when the team starts being picked off one by one.
That kind of reminds me of Terminator 2, right? Because like in Terminator 2, I mean, going into that movie, just from the advertising campaign and everything, and all the hype leading up to that movie, you knew that Arnold was now playing a good guy.
Right.
T-800 or whatever he was. But if you watch that movie carefully and imagine that you had no knowledge prior to going in, you don't really know who is the good robot and who is the bad robot until they kind of have the showdown in the mall, like in that hallway.
Right, yeah, because that's when Arnold is, pulling the sawed off out of the box of roses.
Yeah, and he like ducks around and he protects
John Connor.
Yeah, John Connor protects John from the bullets. So that would be totally. You're right. That would be a great way to start the film, is having that half hour of just no idea that there was anything supernatural that was gonna.
Yeah, and the cut would be so minimal. It's just you cut the first 45 seconds or a minute.
Right.
And that's right, because they go to the chopper landing, to the mission debriefing, and it's easy just to go into that. It's easy to go into that first half hour of the movie thinking, oh, they're just gonna have a tough time basically accomplishing the mission. And then half hour into the movie, like they've accomplished the mission. So you're saying, well, where's the other hour going to be?
Right.
Like they
now
just
what
have
next?
a hard time. They're going to see some of these jungle terrors that the field manual talked about. I don't know.
Let's back up to the beginning of this minute a little bit. So we got some dialogue, right, between Dutch and Pancho. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so do you want to recap what they talk about there?
The original script.
Oh, nice.
Well, I keep saying original script. Like I put that in quotes because this is a script clearly that was being changed on the days of the filming, even if they're a loose skeleton of the structure left over from the first time the Thomas brothers wrote it. The original script is pretty much a line for line match to what we see in the movie for this scene, which is really handy because it was an easy copy paste and it had all the lines of dialogue right there.
Yeah, looking at it right now, this is pretty much line for line their conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say in this scene, it's probably at least Billy's and possibly Poncho's most dialogue we're going to hear from them at one time in the movie. Mm-hmm. But Poncho hustles down to Dutch, and Poncho says the pilots each got one round in the head, and whoever hit it stripped the shit out of it. Then Dutch says, took him out with the heat seeker. And Ramirez says, there's something else, Major. And that's the first of two times we hear that line, there's something else, Major, in this minute. So you're kind of hinted on, oh wait, maybe there is more to this than just simply rescuing or simply following the mission that we were told by Dylan.
Right.
And Poncho says, I don't think that was any ordinary army taxi. Schaefer looks at him, so gives him like a, and Poncho / Ramirez says, looks more like a surveillance bird to me. And he's saying this last line as Dylan is coming up behind him to join the conversation.
That's right. And that's when we get a little bit of, you put this in your notes, a little bit of ADR, right? Like they must have had to cover up or change a line, or it didn't get picked up in the original filming very well.
Right.
Yeah. So he says, it looks more like a surveillance bird to me. And then Dylan asks him, Dylan, have you picked up their trail yet?
Dylan's coming in knowing that, right, like we found this thing, like how, are we on the right path? Do we know what's happened? Do we know where we're going to go next? And Dutch says, Billy's on it, just really casual, nonchalant line reading, which I really enjoyed, partly because it's playing up Dutch's suspicions and treating Dylan like an outsider like the rest of them are doing now.
Right.
As in like, don't worry about this. We got this.
We got it. We've got a guy that can do that. Don't you worry about it.
Exactly. And also, it reminded me very much of Han Solo talking to Lando in Cloud City of Empire Strikes Back when Lando sees that C-3PO has been busted apart and Lando asks, trouble with your droid? And
pick up the trail yet?
Billy's on it.
Having trouble with your droid? No problem. Why?
Just very like nonchalantly, like this is our business, it's none of your business.
Yeah. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take care of that. Along with the line reading itself, I think both situations have that air of distrust for the ally or the former ally, and Dylan in this movie and Lando. in the other movie.
Yeah. So then Dutch says heat seeker, pretty sophisticated for some half-assed mountain boys.
And I didn't quite understand when he's talking about mountain boys. If there's like some analog we have, I love that line.
No.
It just like paints a picture. It's hard to know what he means by mountain boys, like just like rednecks just kind of messing around with like pocket launchers.
Right.
It's like, hold on, can you hit that? Can you hit that helicopter? No way! Just, how dare you? Just launching a missile up into the sky. He's trying to just again needle Dylan a little bit for what is this mission really about. I think he does this early on when they're debriefing in the way back when in the hut with the general. When Dylan tells them, he's starting to tell them about the mission. Dutch at that point, it was a few minutes ago, but Dutch at that point had turned to Dylan and just gave him this go on. It's very like casual kind of like prompt, but you could totally see it in Arnold's line reading that he's picking up something a little bit extra, and Dylan has to lie to him in this minute too. At the end of the minute, when Billy gives them the report.
At the very beginning of this conversation, we skipped over it a little bit, but I really like how they have Arnold posed. When Dutch comes up, he's got like his foot up on a rock or something, like a statue, like one hand on his hip, and then like his gun is over his shoulder. It's like the most stereotypical manly pose possible. He's like staring off into the wind. He looks like a unicorn on a windy cliff, and then Pancho comes running up.
He does look very statuesque, and he's aiming the weapon basically right at the camera, his M16 A2 with the M203 attachment. I do like how he's right up front, though. It is playing him as this leader who's participating, not a leader who's hanging back and ordering people, but he's like right on point, just waiting for the information to come back from Billy. Just again, right there in the field and right there, right there at the forefront.
Not afraid to be on the front lines.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so then we get some information about the number of people that have taken the prisoners. Right. So then Billy says, Major, look, there were 10, maybe 12 guerrillas. Looks like they took some prisoners from the chopper. Points, and then says there's a different set of tracks over there.
Yeah, he says there's something else, and then, look, Pancho said that just a few seconds ago. Yeah, about a trail or a different set of prints, 6 sets of U.S. Army issued boots following the guerrilla trail. So did you have any questions yourself about logistics right here, about looking back on this and saying like who is doing what, who's going where?
Yeah, so as I understand it, so as you can see, I'm not a Predator expert. I'm just a lowly fan who brushes through the first 30 minutes to get to the good part. So there was a helicopter was coming through, was taken down by the group of 12 guerrillas. Hostages were taken. The other people in the helicopter were killed. They leave. Another group of 6 soldiers comes through, and we are assuming that those 6 soldiers are supposed to be on the trail of these same 12 prisoners?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Now I get it.
I also take it to mean that Dylan knows exactly who these people are, and we'll find out a lot more in 2 or 3 more minutes.
I can't wait till you get to the rebel camp.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's all. Billy has his longest line of dialogue probably in the movie right here, where he's reporting on his scouting duties, his tracking duties. He's in my eyes, he's becoming the tracker, the point man, the scout for this group that everybody says that he is. So he's coming back to Dutch. He says Major a couple times. I don't know if this is a John McTiernan decision, but he says Major. As you see him approaching, you can see him say Major again a second time, but you don't hear it. So that line was 80 yard out. It was like anti-80 yard. It was like, oh, we're going to cut John McTiernan just saying like, for the sake of efficiency, just cut that second thing. Arnold should be looking the first time he's called.
Funny. I never noticed that.
Yeah, it's one of those little tiny things. He explains the situation. looks like there are maybe 10, 12 guerrillas. Looks like they took the 2 prisoners from the chopper. So it's not specific on the script, but it is specific in the movie here that they took 2 prisoners. How you'd be able to tell that? Well, you have to talk to Billy. He must be some awesome tracker. And then he says there's something else. There's a different set of tracks. U.S. Army boots came in from the north, followed the guerrillas.
So we got a second set. So there's some other patrol that is also on the trail of these guerrillas.
Yeah, very pointedly following those other guerrillas. And Billy makes it a point to recognize the distinction of the different gear. As an audience member, right, watching this for the first time, you're probably thinking the same thing about who are these other people? Are we going to run into another group of elite mercenaries or elite Delta Force level soldiers like Dutch's team? I don't know. You'll have to just wait, I guess, and find out.
Yeah. We need a Predator prequel that tells the story of this group of soldiers as they're coming through the jungle. Then we can find out what actually happened.
The prequel would be about 15 minutes long, but yeah. It's one of the neat things of the movie, in my opinion, that there are things happening outside of the movie that we don't see, that we can just imagine in our heads, that we have to imagine in our heads.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The whole first 30 minutes of the movie is they set up the scene, and it takes us to where we need to go for the showdown to happen with the Predator. But they do leave things pretty open-ended in terms of details, and I think that does the movie a service. It makes it so that it's a little mysterious. A lot of questions just kind of go unanswered. A lot of people are killed before they get the questions. They get their questions answered.
I note that they don't really later on ask anybody anything about what's happening or the operations. It's blow it up, blow it sky high.
They just blow everything up. Yeah, you don't even really you can't even really tell if they know that they're killing rebels or perhaps other U.S. soldiers, because they just roll that truck down there and just start lobbing grenades. Oh man, I can't wait till you get to that part.
It's gonna be so good. But yeah, so that's a good recap of what is actually happening in the minute. And for the plot we talked about already, it means that they're doing less of the roaming, there's less undecided paths to take, and they're very much following the footprints we know from what Billy is insinuating. And
so this sets them off. Yeah, this sets them off on a direct path, so they know where they're going now.
Yep, they need to find that cabinet minister.
And they also right.
Sure.
Yeah, and they also now have an idea of the numbers of people that they're dealing with.
There's a couple little things to talk about, weapon-wise. I wanted to...
Yes, yeah, you have some good notes on weapons, so let's hear what you got.
So Dutch mentions the word heat seeker a couple times, which is pretty sophisticated for a bunch of half-ass mountain boys. And at the time, if these are Soviet-backed guerrilla fighters in Central America, the most common heat seeker missile at the time would have been the Soviet-produced 9K-32 Strela 2, Strela being the Russian for arrow. The NATO term was the SA-7 Grail. Through a whole Wikipedia article reading about it.
Can't get one of those in GoldenEye.
No, there's something. Yeah, there's no heat seeking in GoldenEye.
The heat seekers in the temple with remote mines.
Yeah, golden heat seekers. One shot would kill you from a rocket launcher.
Right.
I guess in real life too, but yeah.
So, what era was this heat seeker? Is this are we talking modern? Like this is a weapon that they use now, or you're saying this was? I'm sorry, you're saying this was the Cold War?
This is everything Soviet backed. I mean, if you know your Soviet history, you know that they would churn out tanks and weapons, helicopters.
Oh yeah.
At a prodigious rate, but then that technology would be really stagnant. So something like this, produced first in the 60s, pretty much stayed that same technology from the 60s up to when the Cold War was over. the early 90s. The Wikipedia article is rife with talking about who was using the Strela 2 at the time. I focused on the Nicaragua section where it talked about the Contras backed by the U.S. and Sandinista government forces, both being known for using this Soviet rocket launcher. The Soviet rocket launcher was developed based on research that the KGB, basically the CIA for the Soviet Union at the time, the research they're doing on the American heat seeker at the time, the Red Eye. The American Red Eye eventually became the Stinger, but like I was saying before, the Soviet technology,
Stinger.
Yeah, but the Soviet technology essentially stayed the same throughout the Cold War.
Yeah, they got all those people in the gulags just churning out the products. I remember being in a Russian class in college and reading that they would, this is an aside, sorry everybody, but they would in those Russian, basically concentration camps, gulags, where people were being imprisoned and forced into labor for decades, they would, just to keep the prisoners busy, have them churn out like nonsensical things. And they had pictures of these prisoners that were manufacturing like giant nuts and bolts that would never ever be used for any purpose, but it was just to keep the prisoners working and doing something in the camps.
Wow, just like these widgets or thingamabobs or something?
Yeah, exactly. It could have just been anything. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was crazy, crazy pictures. I promise it's true. I saw it in college.
Saw it in college, yeah. So, don't go to the gulag where you have to make useless widgets. It's a bummer. Huge bummer.
Yeah.
The gulag's being a bummer.
Instead,
Hot take. Gulag was a bummer.
Hot take. Tango. Cash. All right, so the Strela 2. So it was an actual like ground to air rocket launcher that could actually detect heat. And
it was, I believe, it was one that had. And I can't explain the technology. Yes, it tailed the heat, but it could only tail the heat to a certain altitude. And during the Vietnam War, when the helicopter pilots, the Huey pilots were figuring that out, they would just go higher than it could detect.
Oh,
and then,
right.
People would parachute in.
That's smart.
Which is not going to detect the people parachuting in because it's not that amount of heat.
Yeah.
That's looking forward. But one of my favorite facts from the Wikipedia page is just the general name for a personal surface-to-air missile, and it's the Man-Pad.
The
Man Portable Air Defense System. The Man-Pad. It's like such a gentle name for something
so it's not something you can find in the personal hygiene section?
It is not. You find it a couple aisles down, the Cabela's, just right between the M16 and the M203 or the 37 millimeter flare launcher or whatever.
Do you have an extra Man-Pad? I left mine at home. That's hilarious. Portable air defense.
Yep.
Man-Pad. All right.
Air defense. The Wikipedia article mentions just a couple more things about the whole Strela. It was credited with downing 10 AH-1 Cobras, dozens of Hueys, one TA-4 Skyhawk, and one AC-130. So what stood out to me was just the note about dozens of Hueys. So before before people figured out, that these things are hit things at a certain altitude and a certain heat signature, because it leaves off in this fact about the Strela being the main reason that today's military helicopters have infrared warning and infrared countermeasures. Those flares that send out, those hot flares, and the heat seeker would do the thing is zigzag to hit the flares, hit the countermeasures as opposed to the actual helicopter.
Got it. And then, so he talks about the heat seeker. We do get a nice shot of Arnold with his gun just draped over the top of him when he's standing like a unicorn on a cliff. And that is his M16, correct?
Yes, it's his M16.
Yeah. And he's also got some grenades, like just sort of dangling from his chest. That's nice.
I'll do the grenade talk around the guerrilla camp, because that's when we really see those bad boys in action.
You think? We do see
Uh,
them.
These are like the first big IMD firearms that we're seeing this kind of long shot or long held shots on. We see Dutch with his M16 fitted with his M203 launcher in IMD firearms database, or the Internet Movie Firearms database that analyzes all the firearms you see in movies, like weapon by weapon and modification by modification and handguard to the flash hiders. Is calling his M16 with the grenade attachment a fake M203 launcher, meaning it's not an actual M203 launcher. It's a 37 millimeter Cobra launcher. I think it's because it gives the grenade launcher like that much more size and that much more intimidation.
Wait, so you found that on the what was it called? The Internet
Movie Firearms Database.
Internet Movie Firearms Database. I saw that in your notes. I thought it stood for Internet Movie Fucking Database. It's like, is that a new one that I know? It's the Internet Movie Fucking Database.
Could be.
When you go up to the website, there's just a guy that goes, "Fuck you." This is the fucking database. Sorry, the podcast just became R-rated. Sorry, kids.
So that's a cool weapon and all, and that's like an actual modification you would see, or something close to, with a grenade launcher at the bottom. We call it underbarrel. We call it underbarrel. But Billy's gun, in my opinion, is way more impressive. So something I had mentioned in a previous minute is when they first land from rappelling down from the choppers, you see Blaine, Dutch, you see Billy, you see Dylan, Mac, all more or less with their unique weapons, either satcheled or in their arms. And I was saying something like, oh, he has an M16 like Arnold. Wrong, obviously, because the close-up of Billy shows you what he actually has, which is, yes, an M16 rifle, just like Dutch has, but his underbarrel attachment is not a grenade launcher. It is a shotgun. It is just the front end of a Mossberg 500 shotgun. In the original screenplay, he was supposed to have the M203 grenade launcher like Dutch, but no, he has a shotgun.
That is pretty badass.
It's pretty badass. And I looked up underbarrel shotguns.
Is that a real thing?
It's a real thing. It is. The M500, from what I could find, was never a real attachment. It was just one made for the movie. Like everything else, apparently, for this movie was like a first time.
It's like they just found a bunch of different guns and super glued them together. It was like, this is yours. This is a rocket launcher shotgun rifle.
Hey, we're a rescue team. We're not assassins. Can we rescue more people with this, or with this and this glued together?
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So he has basically a brand new weapon just for this movie, just like Poncho has his pretend grenade launcher that's made with a flare launcher and MP5 parts. I would say it's crazy. It's like Hawkins and Dylan, they have just your generic MP5s, your submachine guns, and then everybody else has just some ridiculous loadout where you're saying, oh, like these people are so badass that they all have their own.
It's like the Super Soaker guns when we were kids, right? Remember the original Super Soakers was just like a single like tube, and everyone was like, "Whoa, look how much water you can spray." Flash forward like 30 years, and there's like backpacks and like canisters all over.
Shotguns on the bottom.
Yeah. Kids have machine guns on the bottom of their squirt guns.
Flare launchers.
Yeah.
God, kids just have a good time.
Those Super Soakers really got out of control.
God, I remember I had such a good time with Super Soakers.
Oh yeah, they were awesome.
But then you have to like run over to the hose and refill it because you're having such a good time just spraying everybody.
Oh yeah.
Something to watch out for that the IMDb of firearms kept mentioning was whenever you see like a straight on shot of a weapon, see if you can see the blank adapters, meaning like the little attachments you'll see them in the front of the barrels of the M16 specifically. And what that means, there are a couple things. One, of course, they're using blanks in the movie, but two, these are by and large real guns. They just converted, so they didn't like build these guns like airsoft guns, right? Out of like plastic and other parts. But these are actual like 7 to 8 pound machine guns,
and they
in the
just
case of
super glue them together.
M134A, right? Super glue these bad boys together.
That's pretty interesting that they just used real guns.
Yeah, real guns, but like real what? Just custom guns.
Right, real
just
guns,
customized in the max.
yeah, like modified heavily. Right.
Yeah, which I think, which I really appreciate about this movie. Everybody having their own thing. Nobody is like generic, and nobody's like.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of like, oh, is this that character and that's that character. No, it's like those are specific, unique characters with their own personalities, their own minds, their own guns, their own IMDb firearms.
All right. So does that kind of bring us to the kind of the end of the minute? You talked about the guns. Is there anything else of note?
I did want to refer back to the field manual for jungle operations. I brought this up a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of referring back to it now and again. I think I need to have its own theme music. But I looked up the section on tracking because just like Billy's doing here, determining what's happening, like what's happened in the past, like many men, they went that way. But it's a skill is tracking through the jungle. And part of the guide makes it seem really easy that like there's so many things you could disturb. There's so much possibility of like mud footprints. In my opinion, it would be not impossible. Right? I'd just be like, I don't know, like that way, or then maybe there's like that could be any kind of trail. It makes a note in regard to guerrillas. So it says tracking is important in counter-guerrilla operations, where it is often difficult to locate the enemy. Guerrillas who conduct raids and ambushes will normally return to their bases as quickly as possible. Well-developed tracking skills will help units to maintain contact with the enemy. So it's weird, and then I'm reading like these things from this 1982 guide, and it's like,
right.
Maybe the brothers, when they're writing the script, are like taking a lot of this into consideration. Like, oh, like as soon as they strike, they're going to go right back to the camp. So that was neat. I found it mentions what you could look for if you are tracking someone through the jungle on a separate page. It says look for broken branches and twigs, leaves knocked off bushes and trees, branches bent in the direction of travel, tunnels made through vegetation, broken spiderwebs, pieces of clothing caught on the sharp edges of bushes, and footprints, just like Billy found.
Ooh, yep.
So it's really neat to see correlation between like a real life document that would be circulating through the army at the time.
Yeah, it seems like they did their research because, I mean, beyond the modified crazy weapons and whatnot, I feel like all the interactions feel realistic. The decisions they make feel realistic, and the way they speak to each other all seems like a group of trained professionals following protocol.
Yeah, and look at Poncho here at the beginning. Talk about professional. He's very much whispering quickly and quietly to judge his findings. He's not blurting it out. He's not yelling it from the chopper. He's right up next to the statue of the unicorn.
Yeah,
beautiful creature.
To have a quiet conversation with the boss to find out, just to give him the information that he needs to know to make the next decision. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't tell the new guy because the new guy sucks.
Right.
He's ghosting us. He's terrible.
Yeah, ghost the new guy.
The last thing I guess we could talk about, this being, almost said Halloween, this being Thanksgiving week, I thought, what better way to celebrate Thanksgiving? One, to record a podcast about Predator, but two, think about what are some of the things you're thankful about in this movie, Predator. So I have my own list of 3, and if you have a list of 3,
yeah, do you want
we can maybe trade off?
Should we go back and forth? Let's do that.
Shall.
Let's go back and forth.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you want to start, or should I start?
I can go first.
Okay.
My first thing that I'm thankful for in Predator is Shane Black.
Ooh.
I just said Shane Black because this movie is mostly devoid of any humor or comedy. I appreciate the Shane Black character in the beginning, bringing a little levity. His jokes are vulgar, to be sure, but you can't help but laugh at them. They are funny.
They are funny.
Yeah, and Shane Black he's the first one to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the gift he's giving us as the sacrificial lamb as the rookie.
He drops a couple vagina jokes and then he's killed. And so yeah, I appreciate his time that we get in Predator with Shane Black.
Awesome. Well, I'll go character to character because I have my 3. I said Jesse Ventura in general, just everything he brings to the screen, his presence and his great blend of I'm here to do work, but I can also enjoy my time too. I can have quippy one-liners. I can really enjoy this humongous gun, the biggest weaponry ever to be carried by hand on screen. You know, him.
Oh, such great line
spitting
delivery.
And, oh yeah, the few lines he has, and I just think he's totally committed to this part. You're not going to find better acting out of Jesse Ventura in his few other roles.
Yeah, right.
In my opinion, and I just think he really plays an awesome part in the team.
Yeah, you can't imagine anyone else playing that character now that he's done it.
Yeah, totally. You have someone who's fully, in my opinion, probably drawing attention to themselves as like, I'm this famous person. I'm, you know, if you replace him with another wrestler like The Rock, then it would be, I'm The Rock and I have my brand and
yeah,
it's how it's going to be. I'm not going to do anything unkempt or untoward, you know, against anybody. So big fan of Jesse Ventura. What about you? What's your number 2?
Nice. All right. This one is alluding to a scene that we've been alluding to for a while, but I'm thankful in Predator for guys on springboards. Guys that are stuntmen that are willing to fly themselves through the air, be in front of an explosion. Man, they do that a lot, and it's so great. Yeah. And it's very much, this kind of leads into my third thing, so I won't go too far, but it's very much something of this era, right? To see just like generic bad guy flying clearly off a springboard into the air from some explosion. And man, they really do it up when they get to that part, and I love that in this movie.
There's a lot of really good. I'm thinking already ahead. So like, there's one scene where the guy, I don't think he's on fire, but he's falling from something on fire into water, yes. Just like slow motion, just this body just falling. Oh, I love it. For the people, they fall slightly off screen, like just off camera. So right. You're like, oh yeah, I know there's something there to catch it.
Yeah, onto a nice big marshmallow. All right, what's your next one?
My next one is just the simplicity of the script. I'm a big fan of cutting out the unnecessary parts where you need to. I'm a big fan of just editing in general, whether it's my own lessons, whether it's, you know, editing like an email and taking things out, or in this case a movie with lines of dialogue removed, scenes removed, which we haven't seen a lot of scenes really necessarily removed from the script yet, but there are definitely some in the climax and in the end of the movie that they've removed for just keeping things simple, straightforward.
Less is more adage,
definitely.
Right?
Well, not only less is more, but also allowing the cinematographer, allowing Alan Silvestri and the sound department to do their jobs of telling the story through audio and visual versus just words all the time. Like here in this scene, like we said, it's the first time in 3 minutes someone's talking, and it's, you know, hush, you know, right up close between two people in a very professional manner.
Yeah, all right.
What's your number 3?
My third one's a little more general, and it's more that I'm thankful for movies of this type. That's kind of a general thing, but what I'm saying is I'm thankful for this era of 80s action movies that came out. I sound like an old man, but they don't really make them like this way anymore.
No.
They don't make them like they used to.
Not at all.
So I'm thankful for Predator as one of the best examples of this genre. If you are a fan of film, and in particular a fan of genre film like I am, like I love action movies, horror movies, sci-fi, things like that, then you have a particular fondness for the 80s because these types of movies were being made for people like us. They were being given big budgets, big names, big directors, and you just don't see that quite as much anymore. You know, we're getting a lot of comic book movies and other huge, massive, big budget movies. Those are really made for, those are all PG-13. And I just really love in this era that someone would say, no, we're going to make an R-rated action movie for adults. And Predator's one of the best ones there is. So
yeah, totally. Like those are the movies made to draw the big audiences in the 80s. And if you're looking for those nowadays, those genre ones, you usually have to go overseas and watch something made in Hong Kong or South Korea or Thailand. If we're talking like the Raid movies.
Right.
Those are some fantastic movie making departments for those genre films. Not only just actioners, but also you have in South Korea, they have a lot of like really great thriller, crime drama movies, like almost mafia-like movies. Maybe they're like kind of in the 80s department right before they're starting to go big movie, like comic book style movie.
Right. And the 80s was unique too, in that you had these, like these smaller studios that would just churn this stuff out. So, Predator is an example of a bigger budget one, but, you've got like studios like Cannon Films that were just churning out action movies. All the Van Damme movies were just Cannon Films. And, they were just making these as fast as they could, throwing them at the wall to see what would stick.
Right.
And, some went straight to video, and I don't know, I just love that era of film for how much content there is. And some of it's really good, some of it's really terrible, but at the very least you have lots and lots to choose from.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, whole movie studios were devoted to good stuff and schlock. You couldn't go wrong. You knew what was going to come next. Like, oh, Van Damme, right? And some kind of bloody mess. Like, I'm going to go see it. Can't wait.
Go see it. Yep. All right. Oh, you still need your third one.
I need my third one. I'm trying to. I would say. So you mentioned the 80s. It gives us also during the Cold War there was always a fixed bad guy. You always had the Soviet presence anywhere around the world. Through all the proxy wars in Vietnam and Korea to Central America, where you could point and say that's the bad guy. Say goodnight to the bad guy. No.
Right.
But you could point to that force, that whole of the country, the whole of their system of government/economy, the evil force of communism trying to take over the world. And I would say we don't really have that now. Now we talk about terrorism, but you're just kind of making a blanket statement about, terrorism being like this kind of cell-based, small group-based force.
Right.
There's not like one entire country anymore. Like there's no armed, right? We're not like saying all of Afghanistan or other countries that we have forces in right now are like the enemy, and like we're not trying to wipe it off the face of the earth like so many people probably were ready to do with the Soviet Union. So we don't have that kind of punching bag of evil force that we can put in movies anymore.
That was always the go-to, right? Like it doesn't even matter the genre.
Boxing.
But I was going to say boxing. Just get a big, strong Russian. There you go. He's evil all of a sudden.
Like war games.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we just had that. I mean, along with being terrified of nuclear annihilation. And don't forget in the 80s, like they also made some pretty sweet bad guys. Like, not bad.
Oh yeah, so many good bad guys.
We see a really, really good one in this movie, in Arnold's old buddy Ole Thorson in the Rebel Camp. A little bit later. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's the one he knock with his M203.
Knock.
Knock. So good. Okay, going ahead of myself. Number 3, speaking of knock, is just, this is, in my opinion, Arnold's best acting in his action movie phase.
Yes.
I think of all the other movies, and like I mentioned before, like people are quick to talk about the Terminator movies, but he's playing a robot, which could be hard on its own, but at the same time, it's really a one-note performance. And the big difference being in the second one, he throws in some one-liners which are memorable and they're fun and funny. But in my opinion, just him being paired up with such an awesome director at the time, Rick Tiernan, and being given, the lead, not in necessarily just the movie, but also in this team, he really runs with it and he does an awesome job. Yeah,
it's not an easy role to play his character that has, especially in the second half of the movie, so little dialogue.
So little dialogue, all physical acting. It's not necessarily the physical acting of just throwing people through windows or picking up a truck and throwing some C4 or explosives in it. It's the physicality mixed with, I would say, an inventiveness that his character has to really embrace in order to defeat his foe.
Right.
And you see a lot of facial acting, especially when he figures away in the third act to where the predator is or where he thinks the predator is, because the predator has active camouflage up to a certain point, and he does so good acting with his eyes. Especially there's one scene I'm thinking of where his head's against the log and he's looking around, and then like he hears maybe the blood behind him like dripping down, and the predator is actively camouflaged, like moving behind him, doesn't see him, but Arnold's eyes are telling you like he's picking up everything that's going on around him without him having to say he's right behind me. And like he's avoiding all the one-liners, which I love the one-liners for their longevity and and just their humor, but in the sense of this movie, he keeps the one-liners like pretty much dedicated to just like a couple of the goofier scenes, like the handshake and throwing the machete to the guy around.
Yeah, and it's in the beginning section of the movie.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely an underrated performance. People don't talk about as much as they probably should. Some of the great action performances.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people will refer to Predator all the time as a great action movie, but I think people don't realize how great Arnold really is in this one.
Yeah, and he's having to adapt because it goes from action movie to survival horror when the people are starting to be picked off and there's nothing you can do. Like you try to trap it, you try to fight it, but in the end, what do? You run away. So you become that that final girl, as I mentioned before, that he is in this movie. I'm the final girl.
Well, has this been the Thanksgiving moment on Predator Minute Podcast?
Thankful moment.
Brought to you by Jon and Jeff.
Everyone's thanking. The whole world's thanking you.
Might have one in another year or so, because if I'm doing one a week like this, it's going to be going for a couple of years.
Right.
I have like 3 episodes of thankfulness.
All right, so do we have anything else here on the list?
I don't have anything else on the list, because as I mentioned before with the script is pretty much a one-to-one to what they say in the movie.
Yeah.
Whether that means they're changing things up as they actually film. They say, hey, this sounds like a good line. Let's put that back in the script.
Yeah.
Or they are being totally faithful to it. Not really sure, but yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Jeff, where can people find you?
Oh, you can still find me on Twitter at I should specify for all the people that have been trying to flood Twitter to follow me that it's Carl with a K. If you were searching Carl with a C, I'm so sorry. You could not join the thousands of people that are now flooding my Twitter account. But you can find me at Carl with a K Hungus. Carl with a K _ Hungus with a capital H 314.
Carl Hungus Pie.
Come follow me. I don't think I've updated. I haven't tweeted anything in several days, so you can look forward to that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Carl Hungus Pie.
I'm also on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, Jeff Glover. Although I never use my Instagram. I'm really bad at this.
Speaking of social things, you can find Predator Minute on Twitter and Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. And if you've ever tracked someone through the jungle, let us know how you did it and how in the world you knew that it was a dozen people plus another half dozen plus 2 hostages you're tracking. You can do that at predatorminute@gmail.com. And for all things Predator Minute, I have been John Sprisky.
And I'm Jeff Glover.
And until next time,
stick around.